Rex Ryan didn't hold back. Days before the Ravens game, he was ripping into Shedeur Sanders, calling out the rookie's poise, decision-making, and readiness for the NFL. But the moment Sanders took the field, completely unprepared, unfamiliar with his own offense's cadence, and surrounded by starters he'd never practiced with, everything flipped. Ryan's tone shifted from ridicule to outrage. He realized the real issue wasn't Sanders' talent or mindset.
If you're into the real story and all the messy twists they don't show on highlight reels, go ahead and subscribe. And if you're sticking around to see how this Browns QB chaos plays out, you should definitely be subscribed.
It was how the Cleveland Browns had mismanaged the entire situation. The rookie wasn't just thrown into the fire. He was set up to burn. It's hard to imagine a clearer picture of dysfunction. The Browns traded up for Sanders, but failed to give him even a walkthrough with the starters. No first-team snaps. No live reps. No sense of role clarity. What Ryan saw wasn't a rookie imploding. It was an organization sabotaging its own investment through ego, miscommunication, and negligence. The issue here isn't quarterback talent. It's leadership malpractice. This wasn't a football problem. It was a failure in how the NFL treats its future. Rex Ryan came for Shedeur Sanders' head and then walked it all the way back after watching what the Browns actually did to this rookie quarterback. What started as typical tough guy commentary from an ex-coach turned NFL analyst flipped into a full-blown takedown. But not of Sanders, of the Cleveland Browns organization. Because what happened to Shedeur in that Ravens game wasn't just mismanagement. It was, let's get straight into it. Rex Ryan had been vocal. He didn't think Shedeur Sanders was ready. He questioned the Browns' decision-making. He criticized the player. But what nobody, not even Rex, realized until that Ravens game was how deeply dysfunctional the Browns' handling of Sanders really was. And when the truth came out, Rex Ryan instantly changed his tune. Turns out, Shedeur wasn't just unprepared for the game. He'd been kept unprepared. He hadn't practiced with a starting offensive line, not in training camp, not in walk-throughs, not even in scout team reps. When he walked on the field to face the Ravens, it was the very first time the offensive line heard his cadence. His first reps were during live NFL gameplay. Let that sink in. This wasn't a case of a rookie being thrown into the deep end to see if he could swim. This was tossing him into the ocean without a life jacket, blindfolded and with sharks circling, and then being shocked when he struggled. Cleveland traded up for Sanders. They spent draft capital to get him. That means they saw value. They saw potential, and then they stuck him on a shelf like a collector's item, never actually integrating him into the offense. No reps, no rhythm, no support. And then, one day, suddenly, he's starting against Baltimore. Why? Who benefits from that kind of chaos? What this exposed wasn't a quarterback problem. It was a front office and coaching disaster. And Rex Ryan, after witnessing the unraveling in real time, didn't hold back. He redirected the blame publicly and placed it exactly where it belonged, squarely on the shoulders of the Cleveland Browns coaching staff and leadership. Because this wasn't about evaluating talent. This wasn't about strategy. This was organizational dysfunction at its core. It was ego. It was politics. It was a team so disjointed that it would risk its own rookie investment rather than admit failure or course correct. And the most disturbing part? The locker room energy reflected that dysfunction. There was no fire, no rally, no leadership. While fans were hyped to see Shedeur take the field, hoping to catch a glimpse of the same electric spark he showed in college, the players around him looked disengaged. Teammates showed no chemistry, no urgency, no sense that they were playing with a young QB who needed their support. That disconnect between fan excitement and team indifference said everything. So now you have a rookie QB with football pedigree, high-level potential, and a public spotlight getting thrown into a brutal AFC North rivalry game without a single rep with the starting offense. And we're supposed to critique him for underperforming? Please, the film doesn't lie. The mistakes on the field, the breakdowns, the timing issues, the misprotections, were the direct result of poor preparation. There was no way Sanders could read the field at a high level or command the offense under those conditions. Not when he'd never practiced in it. Not when he'd never heard the protection calls live. Not when his own teammates didn't even know how to respond to him at the line. This wasn't a developmental opportunity. It was a setup And while some would have crumbled mentally, Sanders showed resilience. He didn't lash out. He didn't shift blame. He stayed calm, confident, even when everything around him screamed dysfunction. That kind of mental toughness, that's rare, especially for a young quarterback in the most scrutinized position in all of sports. Rex Ryan saw that too, because once the dust settled and the cameras zoomed out, it was impossible to ignore what had just happened. The Browns hadn't just failed to prepare Sanders. They'd actively prevented him from being prepared. That's not just neglect. That's malpractice. The irony? The very organization that traded up to get him didn't even bother to see what he could become with proper development. And this isn't just a Cleveland problem. This is an NFL problem. How many promising players get buried by front office politics, mismanagement, or coaching egos? How many young quarterbacks are thrown into games as scapegoats while the adults in the room avoid accountability? The NFL talks a lot about talent development, but when you peel back the layers, it's clear a lot of teams aren't building, they're breaking. The Browns' treatment of Shedeur Sanders is a textbook example. They had an opportunity to groom a talented young QB. Instead, they acted like he didn't exist until they needed a warm body to throw into fire. And when things predictably fell apart, it took a complete reversal from a high-profile analyst like Rex Ryan to get the narrative straight. Because let's be honest, if Rex hadn't flipped, the public narrative would have stayed stuck on Sanders isn't ready. Instead of Cleveland sabotage their own, and that's the real danger here. How many careers get written off before they even have a chance to start? Just because a team failed. Sanders has the tools. He showed them in college. He's smart, composed, athletic. He doesn't lack ability. He lacks support. That's what this game made so painfully clear. And if Cleveland wants any shot at salvaging the situation, they need to fully commit. Give him reps. Give him playbook familiarity. Let him develop timing with his receivers and protection from his line. Give him a real chance. Or let him go somewhere that will. Because if they continue to treat him like an afterthought, then that's exactly what he'll become. Not because of his talent, but because of them. This wasn't a talent issue. This was an organizational failure. Start to finish. And to be clear, this isn't just about one bad game or one rookie QB. It's about a league-wide culture where politics and egos can ruin players before they even get a shot. Where organizations value short-term optics over long-term growth. Where guys like Shedeur Sanders, who have every reason to succeed, get thrown under the bus to protect the narrative. Rex Ryan calling that out wasn't just a personal pivot. It was a warning shot. Because if even he can see the writing on the wall, how long before the rest of the league catches? The Browns need to make a decision. Are they going to continue treating their own draft pick like a backup prop? Or are they going to actually develop him? The blueprint is simple. Reps, coaching, transparency, support. Let him take first-team snaps. Let him lead the huddle. Build chemistry with the offense. Let him fail in practice so he can succeed in games. That's how quarterbacks grow. That's how careers are made. Not by setting them up to fail and then wondering why they don't look ready. The tragedy here isn't just what happened in that Ravens game. It's what it exposed about the entire infrastructure of the Browns. A team that says one thing with its draft picks and does another with its decisions. A team that wants credit for investing in young talent, but doesn't want to put in the work to actually develop it. So here we are, one rookie quarterback, one chaotic game, one shocking revelation, and one NFL analyst forced to admit it wasn't the kid's fault after all. If the Browns want to turn this around, they have to start by turning inward. Shedeur Sanders didn't fail them. They failed him. And if they're not careful, they won't just lose a game. They'll lose a quarterback. If you got thoughts on how Cleveland handled this mess, or how many other NFL teams are out here sabotaging their own talent, drop them in the comments. Make sure to like this video if you're tired of watching promising careers get torched by bad leadership. And hit subscribe so you don't miss the next time a team melts down in real time. Because trust us, in this league, it's never just one bad game. And if you're still wondering how something like this even happens in the NFL, where billion-dollar franchises are supposed to run like well-oiled machines, let's peel back the curtain even further. It's not just miscommunication. It's a culture problem. The Browns didn't just forget to give Shedeur Sanders reps. They actively excluded him from the quarterback development structure. He didn't get time with the starters, wasn't looped into the rhythm of the offense, and didn't even get scout team integration. That's not an oversight. That's organizational neglect. And what makes it worse is that this isn't some undrafted camp arm. This is a rookie they traded up for. A guy whose college tape showed poise, deep ball accuracy, and high football IQ. A player with a known work ethic and a very public profile. Whether you loved or hated the pre-draft hype around him, it's undeniable. Sanders was someone the Browns clearly wanted. So why treat him like a third-string ghost once they got him in the building? That kind of cognitive dissonance between the decision to invest and the follow-through to develop is what plagues struggling organizations. And in Cleveland's case, it's become a pattern. This team has long had a reputation for cycling through quarterbacks, coaches, and coordinators like it's a seasonal fashion trend. They'll make a bold move, claim they found the answer, and then 6 months later, reset the entire system. SS and Browns versus Ravens recent match, the problem isn't talent acquisition. It's talent development. And Shedeur is now caught in that same cycle. Drafted with excitement. Paraded around as a potential future. Then buried. Until, of course, injuries or desperation forced the team's hand, and they threw him into the fire. No ramp up. No warning. Just, here's the Ravens' defense. Good luck. And people still expected him to deliver? Of course the game didn't go smoothly. Of course he looked raw. Of course the offense sputtered. But none of that should reflect on Shedeur as a player. It reflects on the Browns as an organization. Rex Ryan, who has never been shy about calling out QBs, immediately walked back his initial criticism. Because when he saw the situation for what it actually was, even he had to admit, this wasn't about performance. This was about process. Let's talk about that process for a second. In the NFL, every rep matters. Repetition is how quarterbacks develop timing with their receivers. It's how they master protections, how they learn to read coverage disguises and pre-snap alignments. Without those reps, a rookie QB is basically being sent into battle without knowing how to load his weapon. That's exactly what happened here. The first time Sanders even got to operate a huddle with the starters, game day, and the offensive line had never even heard his cadence. Let that sit with you, because in a league where milliseconds matter, cadence is a huge part of execution. Miscommunication leads to false starts, missed snap counts, protection breakdowns, all of which we saw play out in real time. It's not a coincidence, it's a consequence. And yet, somehow, Sanders stayed composed. He didn't panic. He didn't unravel. He tried to execute within a broken system. And while the stat sheet won't be kind, the context tells a much different story. Because here's the truth. Shedeur didn't underperform. He was underprepared, and not by choice. That's where the NFL machine gets cruel. Because if the public doesn't know the backstory, they'll chalk up the struggles to the player. And once that narrative sticks, it's hard to shake. One bad game turns into a reputation. And that reputation can kill a career before it even starts. So when Rex Ryan reversed course and called out the Browns, it wasn't just damage control. It was necessary clarification. He saw what many analysts didn't or wouldn't, that this wasn't about excess and OS. It was about organizational failure, a refusal to take accountability, and a willingness to risk a young quarterback's future rather than confront the uncomfortable truth. Let's not forget, this happens all the time in the NFL. A talented player ends up on a wrong team, under the wrong coach, in the wrong system, and they get labeled a bust. Not because they lacked ability, but because the team lacked vision. It's happened before. It'll happen again. And unless things change in Cleveland, Shedeur Sanders is on that exact path. But here's the kicker. This could still be turned around. If the Browns actually commit to Sanders as a developing quarterback, if they give him starter reps in practice, if they tailor game plans around his strengths, if they build chemistry between him and the offense, if they coach him the way successful organizations coach their young players, he could thrive because the raw materials are there. The poise, the arm, the processing, the leadership. You don't survive that kind of debut without having something real inside you. But none of that matters if he doesn't get the reps. And this isn't just about saving one quarterback. It's about the NFL as a whole. The league has a problem. Too many front offices are driven by ego and politics instead of player development. Too many coaching staffs make decisions based on optics, not growth. And too many rookies are getting fed to the wolves, only to be discarded when they don't instantly shine. That's not football. That's dysfunction. There's a reason why certain franchises keep winning. It's not just scouting. It's investment in infrastructure, in player support, in long-term development. Teams like the Chiefs, the Eagles, the 49ers, they build around their quarterbacks. They nurture them. They give them time and tools to succeed. The Browns? Right now, they're doing the opposite. And that's why this story matters. Because what happened to Shedeur Sanders in that Ravens game wasn't just a bad debut. It was a case study in what happens when an organization mismanages its own future. The NFL moves fast, but it never forgets moments like this. And for Cleveland, the choice is clear. Either they double down on the dysfunction, or they take a hard look in the mirror and start doing right by their young players. Start giving Shedeur the reps, the coaching, the protection he needs, not just to survive, but to succeed. Because if they don't, then the game against the Ravens will be remembered for what it truly was. The moment the Browns wasted yet another quarterback with real potential. And honestly, how many times can they do that before it stops being about the players and starts being about them? So if you've been watching the saga unfold and wondering why everything feels so off, that's why. It's not about talent. It's about structure. And Shedeur Sanders is just the latest victim of a broken, and right now, the Browns are doing absolutely nothing with it. That's what makes this whole situation feel so infuriating. They had the ingredients. They had a chance to actually develop something meaningful. A quarterback with NFL DNA, proven leadership, poised under pressure. And instead of giving him a foundation, they gave him a spotlight and a trapdoor. They didn't fail to prepare Shedeur. They chose not to. That's what Rex Ryan realized in real time. The same guy who was ready to light Sanders up for looking overwhelmed on the field had to stop, take a breath, and ask, wait, what exactly did the Browns expect? Because it's not like they didn't know what they were doing. They knew he hadn't taken first-team reps. They knew he hadn't worked with the offense. They knew he wasn't game speed ready. But they tossed him into a high-pressure AFC North matchup anyway, against one of the league's most aggressive defenses. And then, they watched it go exactly how you'd expect. What makes this even more damning is a complete lack of transparency about Sanders' development plan. Was he ever supposed to be integrated into the offense? Or was he drafted to sit indefinitely, a flashy PR move with no real intention behind it? Because if he's just a third-string insurance policy, then why waste draft capital trading up to get him? It reeks of internal conflict. Like the front office made the pick, but the coaching staff never bought in. And now Sanders is stuck in the middle, caught between egos, politics, and a culture that doesn't know how to develop quarterbacks, only destroy them. The silence from leadership says it all. No accountability, no explanation, just vague coach speak and locker room shrugs. Meanwhile, Sanders has to face the media, face the fans, face the tape, all while pretending like this isn't a complete circus around him. And here's where things really start to spiral. If the Browns don't fix this fast, it won't just ruin Sanders. It'll ruin trust across the roster. Players see this kind of thing. They see a young guy being set up to fail. They see coaches deflecting blame. And they start to wonder, am I next? That's how locker room fractures start. It's also how young quarterbacks lose confidence. Not just in themselves, but in the system, in the coaching, in the whole process. And once that trust is gone, it's almost impossible to get it back. Let's say Sanders does get another start. What now? Are they going to finally give him practice reps? Are they going to start building the game plan around his strengths? Are they going to do what they should have done from day one? Or is it just going to be another panic move, another unprepared debut, another feeding frenzy? Because if the Browns want to actually see what they have in Shedeur Sanders, they need to stop playing scared. They need to stop hiding behind vague depth charts and start committing to real development. Put him in with the starters. Give him time. Let him take the lumps in practice, not in a live game on national television. And if they're not going to do that, then be honest about it. Don't pretend like you're invested in this guy's future. If you're just going to throw him out there when it's convenient, then pull the plug when it doesn't go perfectly. Because that's not a developmental plan. That's a scapegoat strategy. And Shedeur Sanders deserves better than that. Every rookie does. But especially one who's shown the kind of mental toughness it takes to survive something like that Ravens game and not completely fall apart. The fact that he didn't implode, that he kept his composure, that he still stood in the pocket and tried to make something out of chaos. That says more about him than anything the Browns have done. It's honestly a miracle he didn't get hurt. You put any young quarterback behind an offensive line that's never worked with him, hasn't heard his cadence, doesn't know his rhythm, and then ask him to operate against an elite defense? That's asking for disaster. And when disaster came, it wasn't him who cracked. It was the illusion that the Browns knew what they were doing. So now the mask is off. The chaos has been exposed. And it's on Cleveland to decide what happens next. Either they clean it up, commit to Shedeur, give him real time, and rebuild the trust they broke, or they continue down this path and watch another young quarterback fade out because the adults in the room couldn't get it together. You can only blame the players for so long before people start asking harder questions. And right now, those questions are landing squarely at the feet of Cleveland's leadership. If you're still watching and wondering how many times we have to see this movie before teams start learning from it, same. If you got a take on whether Shedeur can bounce back from this mess, drop it in the comments. Like this video if you're tired of watching young talent get chewed up by dysfunction. And subscribe if you want to be here the next time another NFL franchise sets itself on fire in slow motion. Because unfortunately, this won't be the last time